Hello and welcome back to another episode of DLC. My name is Joey and today we're going to be talking about a really cool game by the developer and the publisher over at Mundfish. Before we get into the episode, I would like to do our usual shout out, just to say thank you so much to our friends over at Game.Press and Mundfish themselves for giving us a free review copy of the game. We couldn't do this series without you and I really appreciate everything you do for us. So, Atomic Heart is a first-person action RPG shooter set in an alternative history Soviet Union, where robots, AI, and experimental tech have just spiraled out of control. Stop me if that sounds familiar. You play as a government agent sent to investigate a facility that's gone completely off the rails. And from there, it turns into a mix of combat, exploration and puzzle solving across a world that's equal parts fascinating and chaotic. It's clearly aiming for a Bioshock style immersive shooter with a really heavy sci-fi twist, and it works. The concept and the world are easily the game's strongest area. The whole alternate USSR setting is visually distinct, packed with weird, retro but futuristic tech and full of really fun, bizarre ideas that stand out. There's a constant sense that the world is just slightly unhinged. Talking robots, strange propaganda, and experimental facilities. It's all quite a lot, but in a way that's very memorable. The gameplay itself consists of combat, which is made of melee weapons, guns, and special abilities granted to you through your glove. It can feel great when everything clicks. You can chain abilities, freeze enemies, and smash robots to pieces. As well as combat in the game, you've got exploration and puzzles, and they are a mix of environmental puzzles, facility exploration, looting and crafting, and the puzzles themselves are pretty decent, but they did occasionally start to feel a little bit repetitive. There's a really big split in the game between open world and linear design. There are more focused linear facility sections, which I thought were generally stronger, as well as some open world sections, which to be honest were a little bit hit and miss. The open areas can feel a little bit empty or awkward, especially with how enemies constantly respawn and pressure you. Now, visually, Atomic Heart, it's one of its biggest strengths. It goes all out in this retro futuristic Soviet aesthetic. It's bright and almost overly clean, a little bit sterile environments. There are strange stylized robotic designs and bold architecture that feels utopian and unsettling. There's a real contrast between these beautifully crafted, idealized architectural masterpieces and the chaos that is happening inside them. It's a game that can look incredible for one moment and then slightly rough the next. The character act animations were generally quite good, but occasionally felt a little bit stiff. The presentation itself had this overall slightly uneven feel, like parts of it were AAA and others were just a little bit undercooked. So what it does really well in the game is the alternative, unique world and setting. The Soviet sci-fi theme is genuinely memorable. The visual identity is one to be noted. You could look at a screenshot of this game and you would know that it's Atomic Heart. There are interesting abilities and ideas, meaning that the game constantly evolves and doesn't start to feel stale. And generally, the puzzle sections are nice and mostly engaging. I think where it stumbles slightly is sometimes the combat can feel slightly inconsistent. The pacing between sections, it can drag at times, especially in the open areas. That being said, inside the facilities where it's more linear, I never had a complaint. I really enjoyed it. And then finally, that stiff character animation is not a huge problem, but it is something that I noticed, and I feel like it's one of those things that if it's done really, really well, you just don't notice. Now, the reason I'm here is Atomic Heart has recently released a full DLC called Blood on Crystal. The DLC adds a new storyline, areas, enemies, and continues the game's mix of combat puzzles and sci-fi weirdness. It leans much more into the experimental, almost surreal side of the base game, which I really enjoyed, rather than trying to ground things. The core gameplay is largely the same, but encounters feel more focused and the level design is much tighter than based on some base game sections, i.e. the open world. It feels like the developers took the time to review their game and figure out what they really liked about it and leaned into that. The DLC continues to stand out with its visuals and tone, and it leans much more into that experimental side. It feels a lot less restrained than the base game, like it's just going to get weirder. I think if you were going to pick up Atomic Heart, I would say that adding Blood on Crystal is essential. I think that it makes the game much more fun, much more memorable, much more weird, and much easier to talk about with people that haven't played Atomic Heart. It just makes it stand out much more. Overall, if you like these kind of games, if you like shooters, action shooters, and you want something that's a little bit different, a little bit out there, watch the trailer. You get a really good idea of what Atomic Heart is all about. Right, I'm out of here. My name's been Joey. Thanks again to our friends over at Game.Press and Mundfish for the review copy of the game. Couldn't do this without you. Catch us next time on Game Club Pod. Have a great day, and God bless.